I think there's a really large untapped opportunity in the SMB, SMC space. I think small businesses are really ripe for leveraging the value that we're providing in Teams Phone, especially with some of the innovation that you're seeing now that we're putting into Teams and Teams Phone.
Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week we're talking about Microsoft and Operator Connect and telco strategy. We had Taimoor, actually met him in person at the Shaw offices in London, so we're recording in person, which is really nice. Taimoor looks after telco strategy for Microsoft Teams and Microsoft, and we got into kind of the Operator Connect story, Teams Phone Mobile, all the different telephony options, where things are going, and the Operator Connect journey as well, going from where it started to now, closing in on 100 operators and 100 countries covered. So really hope you enjoy the show. Thanks to Taimoor for taking the time out to do the podcast. And also many thanks to Mnemonics, who offer a great call recording solution for Microsoft Teams, being the sponsor of this podcast and their support of everything we're doing. And with that, on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Doing another in-person. Shaw have kindly given up their office space, their podcast space in London, so I appreciate that. Got Taimoor, who's in the country talking to various operators. Taimoor, let's start off by, do you want to introduce yourself and your role inside Microsoft?
Cool, yeah, absolutely. Tom, thanks for having me. My name is Taimoor. I work on our telco strategy for go-to-market on all things M365, which of course includes Teams, Teams Phone, meeting rooms, Copilot, and all the rest of it.
Awesome. I feel like I've fortunately got to know you over a little while now inside of Microsoft, but I feel like your role is a bit of a secret outside. Like if I look at your LinkedIn, it's just like general manager. So how did you come to be in this role? I know there was some Cisco in the past as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I've been doing something similar to this for about 5 years now. And essentially the need at that time was for us to work very closely with our operators to figure out what their go-to-market looks like. How do we make our joint customers successful? What kind of solutions are they offering? And then when I took this role, actually, if you remember, we were in a Skype for Business world. We were not in Teams yet. And so that transition from sort of Skype for Business to Teams was super important because a lot of our operators were working on Skype for Business hosted server and this whole business model that they had. And so working with them to figure out how do they move their business model to more Teams. And then of course working very closely with our teams, engineering products as well to figure out what works for a telco. So when you think about products such as Operator Connect and Teams Phone Mobile and some of the very operator-focused services that we now have, there was a real need for it. So that's kind of where I fit in.
Awesome. And Operator Connect now, we're now at 97 countries covered and 97 operators. Coincidentally, it's ticking up like operator country. I'm seeing where we get to 100 first. But that's been massive growth since that program started. For the audience, take us through kind of what that is, how it came to be, and the growth story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Operator Connect is a fantastic story, actually. When we were looking at sort of the Teams calling space a few years ago, we were thinking about, there's this whole ecosystem that's developing where we see partners, predominantly operators, who want to offer this as a service. So direct routing as a service used to be the thing back then. And we were like, well, maybe we could just make this a little bit better. Maybe we should put some sort of governance around it, some foundational concepts that customers want, like security, like resiliency, redundancy, some SLAs, and all that kind of stuff. Let's programmatize that.
Knowing who the operators to choose is one of the big things for me. I feel like when we were in the direct routing as a service point of view, you could have Bob setting up one SBC in the cloud and calling himself a direct service provider, and you had the tier one telcos, and it was very hard for customers to know who was doing it legitimately. So I feel like that was a good tick box as well.
That's absolutely correct. And direct routing as a service still exists today, and there are the Bobs who've got the direct routing stuff figured out. But we wanted to provide some credibility to this space, and we wanted to also provide some tools and processes and APIs for the operators to be able to scale this at telco scale. And so that's kind of how Operator Connect was born. And we've seen tremendous growth. So Operator Connect is growing 100% year over year.
Wow.
So if we look at the number of seats and number of enabled users year over year, it's about 100%. We've just closed our year, so I can actually say that. And we continue to just see the trajectory going up. Now, obviously, direct routing has been around for a long time, so there's a lot of direct routing seats out there as well. But because as Teams Phone grows, we're seeing a lot of Operator Connect growth. So we're very bullish on it.
Yeah, so we're up to 20 million Teams Phone seats active. So that's not licensed, and we'll talk a minute about the white space there. But like 20 million is actually has some kind of PSTN connectivity. That could be Microsoft calling plans, could be DR, could be OC, could be TPM. There's a split there, obviously, but there's kind of a mix of options for customers depending on what's right for them.
That's right, exactly. So, we started off, DR was the only thing that we were doing, and then we had calling plans, and then we also had Operator Connect now, and then the latest one is Teams Phone Mobile. So the idea is to give the customers choice, not only of the operator that they use or the service that they wanted to use, but also now between fixed and mobile, the ability to choose based on their users what they wanted to do.
Awesome. And what do you see with customers? Do you see them defaulting to one type of connectivity, or do you see them mixing and matching those connectivities depending on their use case?
It's a really important question. A lot of people ask me this, should we choose Operator Connect? Should we choose direct routing? And there isn't a black or white binary answer that I can give you. I will say that it really depends on the customer segment as well. So smaller customers, typically tend to just go with a single solution. It's less complex and so on. So they'll be like, oh yeah, I want Operator Connect for all of my users, or I want calling plan for all of my users. We're talking about, the sort of small to mid-sized customers. As you go up that chain, though, we find that customers are starting to look towards a hybrid solution where they'll have a bunch of Operator Connect users, but they might have some DR requirements. And so they'll do DR as well. They'll leverage a partner like an SI or an operator to be able to do both. And then now, especially with mobile, we're starting to see, the larger customers say, yeah, I would like mobile, but I want mobile for like half my organization or a third of my organization. The rest will still stick with fixed line. So it really just depends. There's no right or wrong answer there. The good news is that the way that we've architected these services is you don't have to make a either or choice. And I think that's where a lot of people usually get stuck, is like, oh, which one should we choose? And it's not really an exclusive choice to make. The choice you're making is Teams Phone, and then how that gets delivered to Teams is kind of like based on your requirements and users and all that kind of stuff.
And with the exception of Teams Phone Mobile, which we'll talk about in a minute, the functionality is the same whether you're calling plan, DR, or OC. So you're not picking a user experience change, you're just picking a IT choice of connectivity, really, aren't you?
That's absolutely correct. I mean, DR does have a little bit more flexibility on the networking side. Like there's local survivability and there's a bunch of few things, but and then there's obviously some regulated places where, DR might be required, or some security SCIF-like environments where DR might be like, you need to have an on-premise thing. And so there's some corner cases where DR actually serves a purpose.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the rest of it. But yes, you're right. The end user functionality for somebody who's opening up a Teams client, making a phone call or receiving one, is no different.
And two things I hear sometimes from customers in that decision-making process, they're like, surely Microsoft would rather sell their calling plans because that's theirs and there's margin and opportunity for them there. And also, is there going to be a drive to have just OC? And I think you've touched on the answers there, but just to kind of spell it out, what do you say to those things?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I don't see for us any reason to, we want to provide choice to the customer because we understand there's all kinds of customers. Our entire Teams ecosystem actually leverages choice, right? Whether it comes to our devices or the way that service connectivity works and so on. Calling plan is, again, something that we have to be able to provide to the market because customers ask for it.
Yep.
There are certain niche of customers that actually need a calling plan and they want simplicity and they want to go to a single vendor or whatever the reasons are. And it works really well for that purpose. But there's a lot of customers who have deep relationships with operators or contracts that are longstanding or whatever the reasons they want to be able to choose a telephony provider for that. They can do that as well.
Yeah, and coverage, of course. I think we're up to 35 countries on calling plans. So if you're beyond those 35, you're going to then have to choose DR or OC for the rest of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's about providing choice. We have customers today that have OC in country X and calling plan in country Y, because they can, they may have an IT team that manages and supports the US, but they've got an office in, I don't know, Vietnam that they don't want to have to do anything with. So they might get a calling plan there. I don't know if Vietnam's one of the
check the reports. Awesome. So like I mentioned, the 20 million seats, like Microsoft have been on a tear with phones, really impressive. Great end of year as well. Congrats on that. What's your thoughts about where the opportunity is, I guess, for operators, for customers? What do you see for this FY and beyond?
Yeah, I think, I think that there's a really still a massive opportunity, right? There's a couple of thoughts on that are on top of my mind without going into a big monologue on a soapbox. But in general, I think there are. You talked about this white space, right? So we've got a white. It's no secret that we have a lot of people who have invested in an M365 solution that includes phone, but they necessarily haven't yet moved to phone.
Yeah.
Whether it's operational reasons or whether it's whatever the reasons are that they haven't turned it on. In the enterprise space, we have a large opportunity there. And I think that's what's most exciting to all partners, operators and system integrators, et cetera, to be able to go in and have that conversation with the customer. So that's the first one. The second one, I think there's a really large untapped opportunity in the SMB, SMC space. I think small businesses are really ripe for leveraging the value that we're providing in Teams Phone, especially with some of the innovation that you're seeing now that we're putting into Teams and Teams Phone. For example, the Qs app that was announced earlier this year is a really great way for a small business to be able to figure out how do we do a lightweight contact center-like experience.
Yeah.
And then if you think about some of the additional capabilities we're providing, like being able to do, embedding Teams into your website. Like we give you all the pieces of information that you need to do to be able to do a B2C experience where your customers can come onto your website and then talk to you while you have just Teams open, right? And then be able to leverage all of the CX capabilities in there as well.
Yeah, and the thing I love about cloud and SaaS and particularly 365 is those small customers, those 10-seat customers, are getting access to the same features, capabilities, and resilience that the biggest FinServs, legals in the world are getting. Like it's a really democratizing effect that they have access to that level of phone system. You say Qs app, all the capabilities.
Absolutely. And because it's all powered by Azure at the back end, you get all the sort of AI capabilities, which we'll talk about as well, which is the third segue, right? So we talked about the white space in enterprise. We've got some white space to turn on phone there. We've got a really large untapped base of SMB, SMC customers that use M365, but they're not really using Teams Phone. So that's a big one as well. And the third, I think, growth opportunity, which we're going to focus on very, very highly in FY25, is going to be AI. When we think about Copilot as sort of the AI engine that powers collaboration and communications, that's going to be a pretty compelling story to tell. You and I were chatting about this before we started talking, but essentially, the thing I talk most about to operators as well as customers is that before we were talking about a value proposition for telephony that involved moving over from sort of a legacy environment and maybe leveraging different devices, but moving over for agility, flexibility, cost perhaps, and maybe increased productivity. Now we're talking about a whole different thing. Copilot and AI is an extremely compelling reason for you to bring your telephony workload into a canvas like Teams, or because AI and Copilot are only effective when they receive a bunch of signals in terms of the work that you're doing or the data that it has on you, and so your telephone communications, whether it's inbound PSTN calls or calls that you're making, are a big part of that signal data. And the more you feed it, the more intelligent decisions it can make and inform you about the work that you want to do. So I think Copilot AI by itself is really amazing in the work that it's going to be able to do, but then it makes a really, really compelling case for bringing telephony into the Teams environment.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing that with some of the enterprise customers I get to talk to, which is they've started on their Copilot journey, and now they're actually reversing into Teams Phone. So Copilot was the driver. They were like, we're going to do Copilot. We're really excited about AI. And then they're like, exactly to your point. They're like, why don't we get this on our phone calls? And so they're switching from their legacy IPPBX. They never bothered before because they were like, it's good enough. But now they're like, this is a feature we can only get if we move to cloud telephony and Teams Phone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the use cases are incredible, right? I mean, you were talking about this earlier as well, but imagine just taking a phone call on a Teams client or on a mobile device eventually, walking around, from train station to train station or on the streets, walking to the office or driving in the car, and having that phone conversation, but getting to your desk and seeing the summary, the action items, the transcription, everything that you need. It's archived, it's discoverable. You can search for it later on.
Yeah.
It's in context. That's really, really powerful. And that's just the first use case for Copilot that we have for Teams Phone that exists today. We'll probably come up with a lot more as well. So that's really, really exciting to be able to have this AI sort of layer on top of all your communications.
Definitely. So let's talk about that SMB kind of mid-market, because I feel like Microsoft dominates the enterprise and the enterprises really adopt relatively fast. SMB and mid-market and telephony feels slightly different. What are your thoughts on kind of that and the go-to-market there?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging for Microsoft, and this is kind of the challenge that we have to overcome. Really, the SMB SMC go-to-market is completely different than enterprise. In enterprise, we've got sellers, we've got customer success people, we've got all kinds of support to be able to help a customer, guide them through that journey from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But we don't have that scale at the SMB SMC level. So we really rely on our partner ecosystem to be able to do that. And in our partner ecosystem, especially in my world, in the operator world, we've been looking at solutions that operators have been selling for decades. They're hosted PBXs, they're BroadSoft-based solutions, they're some of the newer generation solutions as well. And so we really haven't done a great job of making sure that customers are aware that Teams provides this capability in that space, but also helping our not only our partner channel in the operators, but also all of the other resellers and distributors and CSP partners, everybody who's involved in making an SMB successful, to be able to transact, to be able to operationalize phone in that channel. So I think we're going to focus a lot on that in the upcoming couple of years.
Yeah, that transact one is tough, isn't it? Because quite often in the smaller customers, I don't have that much experience with them compared to the enterprise, but they'll get their Office 365, either Web Direct or CSP. Their telephony is a completely different provider, and the telephony doesn't know anything about 365, and 365 doesn't know anything about telephony. So you're going to have to bridge that gap one way or the other, potentially.
That's exactly correct. And you know that SMBs, SMCs don't have a large IT arm or even a lot of patience just sitting around waiting to figure all of this stuff out, right? So we got to remove a lot of that complexity. And like I said, we're going to have to lean on our partner channel a lot, which is the big opportunity for partners to be able to fix this, right? Is to figure out what the customer journey looks like and what the management journey looks like.
Awesome. So do you see that being a very partner-led motion then? It's either the operators or the CSPs kind of helping those customers?
It's got to be a partner-led motion. In fact, I would even say I'm encouraging a lot of partner-to-partner integrations right now to figure out, okay, we've got set of partners that do this really well. We've got, of course, the operator partners that do network really well in connectivity and enablement and customer journeys. So we've got to figure out how to bring them together. And ultimately, the goal is, the more automation, the more digital journeys you build for the SMB, SMC market, the more successful you're going to be. So customer experience has got to be key.
Awesome. Yeah. So we touched on it a little bit earlier, but let's talk about Teams Phone Mobile, because how long has that been out now? It's a decent amount of time, I think.
I think we've been about a year and a half, a little bit over a year and a half is when we had the first market go live,
So I'm super excited about this. Maybe we should start by defining it for people. I'll let you define it. Kind of how does that work? What's it look like?
Yeah, everybody talks about it, kind of in the same way. But in general, for me, it's basically, it's around identity. I like to start this particular pitch with the identity piece, because the idea here isn't that you're bringing some new groundbreaking experience or capability to life, but we've never had the mobile phone identity be part of a corporate sort of identity platform. And that's kind of what we're doing. We're taking your phone number, which is your mobile phone number associated to you by your SIM card or whatever network you have, now be part of the M365 experience. And what that means is now that that's assigned to you as a user, the policies follow you, the discoverability follows you. All of the capabilities that you would have as an enterprise UC solution now also exist for your mobile phone number. So that's really powerful and compelling in itself because of security reasons, compliance reasons, et cetera, which are kind of boring, really. But then when you think about things like making your presence sort of available for all the enterprise, when you think about a single voicemail box, a single call history, when you think about being able to move calls simultaneously from cellular network to UC and UC network to cellular, depending on where you are and what you want to do and which device you want to use, it's really, really powerful and compelling. So that's kind of what Teams Phone Mobile is. And the way we bring it to life is actually really, really hard. We've chosen the most difficult way to do it because we do a really deep back-end integration with our telco partners. And it's built on the Operator Connect platform. So all of the fundamental foundation that we put in together for Operator Connect already applies. And then we build this rich IMS to cloud integration.
Yeah. So you explained it really well there. I often, when I talk to people about it, the first thing they're like, oh, it's sim ring or it's forking. It's like, well, no, you're deep into the operator, and it is true single number. Like I sit at my Teams soft client desktop and I make a call. It's my mobile, and my mobile carrier is providing that connectivity, and I make and receive calls on my mobile, and they're showing up, as you said, in my Teams call history. Like it's true deep integration.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it's super important to keep this in mind that maybe not everybody needs a dedicated fixed line number or a fixed line device, but everybody ages 10 and above has a mobile number.
Yeah.
Right? Or 10 or 12, depending.
I'm glad you're having this conversation head on, because I like having this conversation with operators. I'm like we can all agree on some timeline, like fixed. I'm definitely seeing customers right size fixed. Like they're like, there's always going to be a use case like telco, incredibly long tail, but they are right sizing. But they're not. Nobody's giving up a mobile, right? That is forever, as far as we can see at the moment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And everybody has a mobile number. And so the question is, how do we make that mobile number more productive, right? How do we include that mobile number into whatever we're doing in the work environment, right? Versus it sitting in some silo where when we use our mobile number, it's a whole different ball game versus when we're using our collaboration suite like Teams. And so that's a pretty compelling use case. Like even, for customers, I don't think many customers are going to move away from fixed line into mobile, but I know several thousands of customers that never actually gave a large part of their employee workforce a desk phone or a fixed line because they never needed it.
Yeah.
But they had a mobile number. And so now being able to bring that mobile number into Teams as well is super powerful.
And back to the SMB mid-market story, right? They're often mobile first.
They're mobile only, actually.
Well, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's more like you're adding an extra capability for them to sometimes do calls at their desk.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. I was talking to somebody just today, actually, I won't say who, and they said, a lot of the SMBs, they buy the fixed line service, and the first thing that they do is forward it to mobile.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm thinking to myself, like that is an absolute best use case scenario for Teams Phone Mobile is you don't have to have that extra hop, right? You just basically just put mobile number in Teams.
Well, and you mentioned Q's app, like being able to bring that kind of routing to mobile scenarios is really exciting as well, because there have been some really bespoke solutions that could do that in a mobile cloud, but they were few and far between, whereas now that's going to bring a really great experience to a mobile-first organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you've got mobile-first employees, having them part of call queues and all of the great stuff that Teams has as a phone capability, it's pretty powerful. Yeah.
So when TPM came out, I was super bullish. I expected it to go faster than it has today. Kind of, what are your thoughts? There's no public numbers, but like in terms of adoption, in terms of number of carriers, like it took a while to get the carriers rolling as well. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I think the carriers in the markets from our side is very intentional. We're trying to make sure that the markets that we are in are very successful so that we can learn and go forward with other markets as well. So you've already seen us go live in the biggest markets that we have, like, right? So the US, UK, Canada, Germany, all of the large markets that Teams and Microsoft are available in. We're also now doubling up in some of those markets, right? Where we're having multiple operators in those markets to see. Yeah,
I'm really excited about that, because I feel like my own thoughts that operators move faster when there's competition, right? So seeing AT&T come into the US, and we've got BT in the UK, we'll have, I think it's VMO2 and Voda are coming through. So UK in particular will be the first market with 3 providers in play, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely really exciting. So we really want to make that successful. So it's been very intentional for us. It's not that we're moving slow. We're just moving very intentionally. And we are adding more operators, adding more markets. We're very committed to it. We haven't announced publicly who's next, but in general, it is moving forward. It does, because there's such deep integration, it does take a little bit of time to bring on an operator in a market. But again, that's very, very intentional from our side. Coming back to your question about like just momentum in general, like the demand is astronomical. Like I don't think we talk to any customer who doesn't say, "Oh yeah, I would like to hear more about that," or "I'd like to figure out." I think what we're doing right now is we're really assessing with all of our customers that are interested in what the user personas are. You can think that there are some industry verticals where Teams Phone Mobile is just absolutely a perfect fit. And then there's some verticals where they're like, no, okay, we're traditional desk workers. Maybe we'll just stay.
Yeah.
But if you think about, consulting and professional services organizations, government and public sector, healthcare even, some of the other places where you'll see a lot of more mobile.
I've seen the police testing it over here, which seems like a slam dunk of a use case to me.
Exactly right. So there's a lot of really, really interesting, compelling use cases. So we're fleshing that out. We're trying to figure that out, and being able to position it. We're also leveraging some of the learnings we've got both from our operators and our customers to inform what we do in the product as well, right? So bringing some really cool innovations into the product. Not much I can talk about it here, but
we're all friends, so it's fine.
But yeah, you can imagine when we think about things like SMS and things like all of these other things that are capabilities that we've got a lot of customers asking for and operating.
Yeah, actually, I've heard that SMS request more than once, right? It's kind of logical as well. Like you've brought mobile in, I'd love to have my SMS to turn up in Teams.
Exactly, and eventually, thinking about how this whole proposition affects. We were talking about SMB and frontline worker as well. Frontline workers again, mobile first, mobile.
Yeah, earlier this year, last FY, the discounted or reduced cost frontline worker license came out. So there's no additional cost on the Microsoft side for TPM either. So suddenly that makes TPM, I think, more accessible in that frontline, first line market.
Exactly. And now we've got packages for both frontline workers with Teams Phone, but also for people who don't have any M365, so Teams Essentials plus Teams Phone. So we've got all of these really great constructs for people to be able to light this up. And now this is in the smaller market segment, so we're really working on leaning on our partner channels to be able to bring this to life.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what are your thoughts for this FY? I guess you can't share features, obviously, but there's work being done. But which areas do you see being the growth areas for this year?
Yeah, I think for both of our cloud calling products like Operator Connect and Teams Phone Mobile, we want to make this a lot easier to enable, a lot easier to buy, a lot easier to manage. And I think there's one component of it that we sit with our partners to give our partners more tools to be able to manage, to give them more incentives to be able to position it. So those are both going to one set of programs that engineering runs to be able to build more APIs and more capabilities to manage it.
Yeah.
And then the second part is our go-to-market programs for all of our partners to be able to be incentivized to do workshops with customers and so on. So on both of those fronts, you'll see us positioning a lot of it. So that's a big priority in this FY. And then we're sort of thinking about, additional capability. Like the Queues app was a big one, I think. Right?
Yeah.
So we had always been asked for, okay, Teams does call queues and stuff, but there's really no visualization. There's no way for us to manage it. There's some really basic features like barging in and supervisor whisper and all that kind of stuff that exists in a CX space, right? So we're not really replacing any partner-based contact center solutions because they're excellent. They've been, doing this for 30, 40 years, and they've got so much intelligence there. But for customers who just need kind of this basic capability of CX, smaller businesses maybe, I think it's a really, really great addition.
Yeah, and a really, really good price point for the stack of features as part of Premium.
That's exactly right. And Premium gives you a lot more as well, like all the call transcription and summarization, call to action. Teams Phone actually sits in Premium. It's not even Copilot, it's in Premium. And so Premium does give a lot of value from that perspective for phone.
Awesome, cool. Well, thanks for taking the time to jump on the pod. I think I can't remember if you've offered on air or off air that you'll hear fairly regularly, so we'll have to do another catch up. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the UK quite a bit, and so appreciate the time and appreciate this, and thanks to Shore to bring this together as well. You've got a great audience, so it's always great to be here.
Awesome. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.